anyone got a microphone on? No? Good. Lovely. Good evening. I'm Councillor Owen Gray. Welcome to this evening's Audit and Governance Committee. The main functions of the committee are to provide an independent focus on governance issues, including the promotion of principles of good governance, to provide independent assurance on the adequacy of the Council's risk management frameworks, internal control environments, the integrity of financial reporting, and annual governance processes, including the work of internal and external auditors, and to determine complaints against councillors where an independent person has made a finding that a breach of the code of conduct has occurred. Please can those in the room make sure their microphones are positioned properly and switch them off when you have finished speaking. Could those joining on Zoom please make sure their camera and microphone is off when they are not speaking? There's no test of the fire alarm this evening. If the alarm sounds, please follow the signs to the nearest available exit. Please go to the fire assembly point in front of the building by the concrete sign and do not re-enter the building until informed to do so by the evacuation coordinator or fire service. Could the officers present please introduce themselves and say which agenda items they are here to present? Ali.
I'm going to go from Lorraine all the way around. So, Lorraine, you start.
Good evening, my name is Lorraine Rogers and I'm the Chief Finance Officer and Section 151 Officer here at East Suffolk Council, and I'm here to support papers 4 to 8 and 13. Thank you.
Evening, I'm Danielle Patterson, Deputy Chief Finance Officer, here to support papers 4 to 8.
Good evening, David Riddler, External Audit, and I'm here for items 6 and 7.
Good evening, Chris Bing, Head of Legal and Democratic Services, Monitoring Officer, here for agenda items 19 and 20. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Sheila Mills-James, I'm Corporate Fraud Manager. I'm here to support Siobhan Martin with item 12.
Good evening, Siobhan Martin, Head of Internal Audit, presenting papers 9, 10, 11, 12, 14, 15 and 21.
Hello, I'm Stacey Ransby, Senior Corporate Performance and Risk Officer. I'm here to support paper 13, Corporate Risk Management Update.
Hi, I'm Anne Utting, Policy Manager, also here to support item 13.
And Sandra Lewis, Head of Digital Programme Management and Customer Services, also here for item 13.
Thank you. And on Zoom we have Laura Fuller. Laura, are you there?
Hello, I'm Laura Fuller, Internal Audit Manager. I'm here to support Siobhan Martin on items 9, 10, 14, 15 and 21.
Lovely. Thank you, Laura.
Lovely. Thank you, everyone. We've got 21 items on this agenda, which I know we're all excited about. I will just remind councillors to keep interventions to the point and as succinct as possible. Otherwise, we will be here until 6 in the morning. Item 1, any apologies?
Apologies from Councillor Molyneux and Councillor King. Councillor Barrett is subbing for Councillor King.
Lovely. Item 2, any declarations of interest? No? Lovely. Item 3, minutes of the meeting of 23rd of March. Are there any comments on those? In that case, do I have a proposer? Councillor Lynch, seconder. Councillor Back, all those in favour? Thank you very much. Item 4, draft statement of accounts. Lorraine, do you wish to speak, or the Cabinet Member responsible?
Thanks. I'll just read the purpose summary and recommendations. Publication of the statement of accounts is a statutory requirement under the Account and Audit Regulations 2015 and the Local Audit and Accountability Act 2014. Following the application of the Accounts and Audit Amendment Regulations 2024 on 30th of September 2024, a revised statutory deadline of the 30th of June was set for authorities to publish draft unaudited accounts for the financial years 2024-25 to 2027-28. This report presents to the Audit and Governance Committee the 2025-26 draft statement of accounts as published on the Council's website, so the 30th of June 2026. Recommendation that the Audit and Governance Committee 1. Reviews and comments upon the draft statement of accounts for 2025 26. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much. I'll open this item to committee members. Are there any comments members wish to make? Mr. Jones?
Thank you. I've just got a few questions on this pack, if you don't mind. The pie chart on page 26 is headed up how the money was spent in 24-25. That should be 25-26, I'm guessing. And also on page 27, item 6, housing revenue account. In the second paragraph, again, there's a reference to 24-25, which I think should be 25-26. I know we've got an awful lot to do, so I'll keep this really brief if I can. On page 37, there's the anticipation of an annual budget gap of 25.2 million by 2029-30. On page 301 of the agenda item 7 pack provided by Ernst & Young, Ernst & Young anticipate a funding gap of 28.2 million by 2028-2029. Is that the same funding gap that we're talking about? And if so, which one is the right one? Or have you not agreed yet?
And thank you for your observations, and you are correct on the incorrect year being quoted on the pie charts. We've noted that, and we'll correct that for the final version. In terms of the budget gap that you referred to, the 25 million is as we've been reporting as East Suffolk Council. But yeah, David, you may have calculated in different bases.
Yeah, our report was done at a point in time, so that would have been taken at a point in time, which is probably, I'm assuming it's now been updated through internal financial planning. It's 24-25 arrangements, and yeah, that would have been at that point in time that we took that figure.
Thanks. So is it fair to say now then that you're comfortable with the 25.2 figure and the timing? Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Just two more questions then, both on big entries in the accounts pack. There's pension liability of 33 million in 24-25, which has been eliminated to nil in 25-26. I wonder if you could explain what that adjustment is, because it's so big, and how it flows through reserves. And also, there's a 56 million movement in debtors and creditors between the 2 years. And again, I wonder if you could just explain the background to that movement. Thanks.
Thank you. In terms of the movement on the creditors, and we'll probably have to go away and look at that to get sort of we can provide a full breakdown as to the movement on that. Pensions, Danielle, did you want to?
I wouldn't know. I'd have to go back.
Yeah, on pensions as well. We'd have to look on and come back on that one as well.
Okay, thanks. I don't have anything else.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? Councillor Lynch.
When we look at page 22 of the main document, we've got down Apprenticeship Suffolk, 171 participants engaged. Is that East Suffolk, or is that over the whole of Suffolk? It's not very clear.
Thank you. I'd like to go back and confirm on that one if it's talking just about it feels like it's wider. It's not just East Suffolk Council. It would seem wider across Suffolk, but if I can confirm that, please.
Any further comments? Councillor Lynch.
Just so then, while we're doing that, is that the same on all the other figures we've got in those sections, that it's actually over the whole of Suffolk? So when they're talking about business support grants, there were 67 grants awarding. Was that East Suffolk? Was it, are we trying to say that we did all of this, but most of it actually was the whole of Suffolk?
On the business support grants, that would be the number of grants that East Suffolk Council has awarded. On the apprenticeship query that you had before, I just want to check that isn't just like East Suffolk Council, if it's wider in terms of supporting the business communities within East Suffolk. So I'd just like to clarify that for you, Councillor Lynch.
Any further comments? Councillor Byatt.
Thank you. Thank you, Lorraine, for your report. I'm not sure it's in here or where else I should be looking, but it's really clarification, teasing out what the current debts are to this council from council taxpayers and also from council rents. Would it be within this statement of the council or would I find it elsewhere? Thank you.
Councillor Byatt, again, we'll probably just need to go and have a look on that as well for you. Yeah, it's probably in the collection fund note to the accounts, but to get the full detail for you, I'd like to go away and just check that.
Thank you. If there are no further comments, then we can wrap this item up. Obviously, mentioning that you'll probably circulate an email to the committee on those questions that were raised. Councillor Gandy.
Thank you. Just out of curiosity, obviously it has been on the website, but presumably have you had comments on it? Because it'd be interesting to see whether anybody's actually picked up on it and read it. Okay, fair enough.
No.
Well, good then, it's all rather route.
Yes, no, not today.
In that case, do I have a proposer? Councillor Byatt, seconder. Councillor Gandy, all those in favour? Thank you very much. Item 5, draft annual governance statement 25-26. Would the cabinet member or responsible officer wish to speak?
Do I have to read out the purpose, or if not necessary, we can?
Does the committee find it being read out necessary?
Okay.
No?
Thank you.
Any comments? No? No? Councillor Byatt? Never disappoint.
Thank you again for a very thorough report. Mentioned in here about job vacancies. Have we identified which particular jobs are hard to fill within the council? And that's the first one. The other one is just clarification in a minute. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Byatt. Yes, as a council, we have looked, and particularly the work done by the Human Resources team, have looked at the hard to fill posts, so they have been identified.
Thank you. It's just an expression. Page 40. It's just the wording of it on here. It says insights discovery, colour portfolio personality assessment. I just wondered what that was all about. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Byatt. So as a council, we've engaged with an external provider on an insights discovery programme, which is a corporate leadership team with undertaken this exercise, and it's also been rolled out and taken on with other teams as well, which is to discover how we work as individuals, and you fall into a category of colour to describe the way you like to work. So that's where the colour coding comes from, Councillor Byatt. So it's to help the organisation and working together as teams, how we best work with each other to understand most effectively how to collaborate with individuals, and it's been a really insightful and really valuable programme to undertake. But yeah, the colour coding comes to how you ended up being sort of categorised in sort of 1 or 4 colours.
Anyone else wish to share their aura? Councillor Lynch.
Last year when we went to our external auditors, they were quite excessive amounts of errors, and they were picking up rather a lot of things that has cost this council a lot in additional charges. Are we sure we've now stopped those holes what we had come through in the last set of audited accounts?
Lorraine?
Thank you, Chair. In a later paper on the external audit plan for 25-26, we have include an appendix there to sort of set out the actions that we've undertaken, reflecting on the assessment that was undertaken by EY, to show the actions that we've put in place and are putting in place to address those.
Any further comments? In that case, let's move to approve. Do I have a proposer?
You need to read the recommendation.
That the Audit and Governance Committee reviews and approves the draft annual governance statement for 25-26 alongside the draft statement of accounts 25-26. Are there?
Yes, lovely.
Councillor Gandy? Oh, you can propose it if you want. Would you like to propose it? Or, okay, I don't want to be too forward. Councillor Gandy's proposing. Seconder. Councillor Leach, all those in favour? Thank you very much, everyone. Item 6, 25-26 External Audit Planning Report. Would the Cabinet Member responsible wish to speak?
So let's do that and read the recommendation for you, and that cuts through it. This report provides the committee with the opportunity to review and consider Ernst & Young's provisional audit planning report for the financial year 31st of March 2026, providing the proposed approach and scope for the audit prior to the planned commencement in July 2026. Following feedback from 2024-25 audit, this report also details the actions taken by the Council to further address areas of required improvement and to prepare for the commencement of the 2025-26 audit. Recommendations: that Audit and Governance Committee 1. Reviews and comments upon Ernst & Young's 2025-26 Provisional Audit Planning Report, Appendix A, notes the actions undertaken and planned improvements by the finance team in response to the feedback provided by Ernst & Young following completion of the 2024-25 audit as detailed in Appendix B. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much. Does the External Auditor wish to say anything before I open up to committee?
Thank you, Chair. I can just be brief. So this is our audit plan for the statement of accounts and annual governance statement that the committee have just seen. Just to draw out changes from previous plans, I think is what I'll reflect on. So pages 220 to 222 of your pack, that's 5 and 6 of our report. It sets out the context we've discussed as a committee in terms of the issues around public sector reporting and auditing and the plans to get back to a sustainable footing. More than happy to provide any further updates on that. In terms of the audit risks, again, they're on pages 8 to 9 of our pack. The risks are similar to what the committee will have seen previously. I think the two changes I'll just flag. So in relation to valuation of non-current assets, the CIPFA code has introduced indexation this year for assets that haven't been revalued. So that is new for the council and for the audit firms to work on. Second aspect relates to the pensions figure within the account. So this is the first year after the March 25 triennial valuation. So again, there's additional work there in order to kind of look at the impact of triennial valuation, which essentially sets the base for the next 3 years of those figures. Other than that, I think materiality is the same basis as the previous year. The timeline has changed by a month, so the backstop regulation now is the end of January rather than the end of February. It's worth noting that next year it comes forward another 2 months, so we're getting a very squashed up period of time in which to produce and audit the accounts. Our audit team, one change, we have got Ahmed, who sat behind me, who's taken on the audit manager role. Otherwise, I'm more than happy to take any questions or go into any further detail if it's of use to the committee.
Lovely, thank you. Are there any comments from the committee? Councillor Lynn.
If I can take people to page 214, I find, which is quite early in this, it's the background. I find it quite difficult when I read some of these words about phase 1 reset, clearing the backlog of historic audit opinions up until including financial 2003. As a council, we had already done this. We were well ahead. We were waiting for EY. And then it goes, which was completed by Suffolk. There's nothing here that points out that actually our audit teams were way ahead of the whole system. And it almost implies that we were the ones at fault for all these delays. I really don't like the wording. whether you look at the reset, the recovery from phase one, again, we were all ahead of time. I know last year we had some arguments about valuations, but if we'd not had all the previous years and years of backlog, I don't believe we'd have had that. And it really reads like it was East Suffolk's fault, when actually it was not East Suffolk's fault. It was external auditors allegedly didn't have enough staff, for whatever reason it is, to do it in the correct timing that we were targeted to do. I just don't like the wording there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lynch. Are there any other comments? Councillor Barrett and Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Chair. Page 223. My curiosity, as ever, I'm afraid, it mentions here our participation in the Suffolk Pensions Fund. What happens when we have 3 unitaries? What happens to that fund? Do we, as one of those unitaries, have access to a third of the Suffolk Pension Fund? It's a lot of money in there. It's been paid over the years. Or do we know whether that's going to be left in place and we then dip into it? But I'm genuinely curious, if we're having this radical change of council, then the Suffolk Pension Fund, will it exist anymore? Thank you.
Lorraine, would you like to come in on that?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Barrett. So pension fund is an area of, we've got work streams across the LGR programme, and within the finance stream, the pension fund is an element of that which will need to be looked at, and whether we're not at that stage as to determining what that will look like, but whether that remains with just one authority still, as it sort of does at the moment, the county. So one authority will be the pension fund holder, if you like. And then it sort of operates similarly as it does at the moment. But yeah, that work has still got to be looked at.
And ultimately, what I'm saying is our bit safe? In other words, what we've paid in for our employees for East Suffolk, is that safe, ring fenced totally? It can't be spent elsewhere. The county can't suddenly decide that they're going to spend it all before we have it diversified. But obviously, I'll wait and see what the work stream comes up with. Thank you.
I'll just add that it will follow the people. So the fund is based on employees. So there will be movements of people across the 3 unitaries. So it will follow the people.
Mr. Jones.
Thank you. First of all, just another typo one, I think. On page 211, item 1.4, we talk about the revised statutory deadline of 30th of June for the publication of unaudited accounts. And we say for the financial years 2024 to 25 to 27, 28. I assume that should be 25, 26. Um, 1.4 on page 211. There's a statement that says a revised statutory deadline of 30th of June 2026 was set for authorities to publish unaudited accounts for the financial years 2024-25 to 2027-28, which obviously you couldn't do. So I'm assuming 27-28 should actually be 25-26.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. That is correct. So a revised statutory deadline of the 30th of June has been set for the financial years 24-25 to 27-28. So it's for the 3 years. That is a statutory deadline that's been set. It used to be earlier than that, and then over COVID it did change. But
Deadline 26 to publish unaudited accounts for 27-28.
It's the 26th, it shouldn't be there.
yeah, the year date shouldn't be there. Sorry, yes, I can see where the confusion is. Sorry, yeah.
Thanks. Okay, I don't have the background that most of the committee have to the prior year audits. So I wrote myself a little sort of summary of what I thought this report was telling me, which I think is probably supported by what Councillor Lynch had to say. The 4 points I picked up from it were the closing balances on certain accounts in the 2023-24 audit couldn't be verified. EY considered that the council was underprepared for the 24-25 audit, and insufficient progress has been made on the verification of the prior year closing balances to enable verification of the closing 24-25 balances. So we still got this unverified position. EY found the core finance team available, supportive and responsive, but found non-core personnel less responsive, both in terms of timeline and adequacy of response. And that currently EY consider that the council is falling behind on the target timetable to resolve prior year issues and move towards audit assurance by 2026-27. Those are the points that came out to me from this. Have I got those all right, or do you think I'm overstating it?
I think you're picking up the key aspects. I think the only bit to add in terms of the history, it's not just a gap from 24-25. So this stretches, the last full clean opinion for the council was 2021, before the backstop regulations got introduced by the council. So we've kind of got gaps in 22-23 and there each year thereafter. So there's a period of time of which we need to regain and rebuild the assurance.
Thank you. In that case, then I've just got some questions that come off the back of that. My first question is, what further progress has been made in reconciling and agreeing the prior year account balances? Are we close to doing that now, or is there still much left to do?
From an audit point of view, as an audit assurance point of view? Yeah. Okay. So I'm trying to think of a succinct way to do it. This has kind of been rumbling on now for a few years. So in terms of the rebuild program, there's two elements to the rebuild, and there was guidance that was issued last year to audit firms to kind of steer the process to rebuild. One element is the natural rebuild, and what we mean by the natural rebuild is we just do the audit as we would do normally, and there's an awful lot of the natural rebuild that can happen from that. For that to work, we need to be able to complete all of our audit procedures in a year. So we haven't been able to do that in 4.5 and 3.4. So that is our focus for 5.6. If we can complete all procedures, actually there's a big chunk of the rebuild that we can then do. The other aspect is then, okay, what's left from those years where we didn't audit the statement of accounts? And we're currently just putting together a risk assessment because MHCLG would like to understand where the gaps are and the timeframes. That element will then follow once we've done the natural rebuild bit. There will be an addendum coming to this committee or available to this committee. I'll send it to officers first to kind of set out where East Suffolk are. There's also a report that we have just issued which kind of pulls together the findings from 4.5, so it would allow the committee to kind of benchmark where this council is in comparison to other councils. In terms of history, so for the last few years there's been very much a pack, so a big group of councils in exactly the same position. It's not just specific to East Suffolk. I think as time goes on, that pack is going to become smaller, which means it's really important for the council to kind of implement the recommendations that Lorraine has talked about to kind of move ahead and rebuild that assurance.
Thank you. Well, my next question was going to be for the council, but probably is best addressed to you, really. Do you have any sense of the materiality involved in these unverified accounts?
It's difficult to say. So our approach to the rebuild is to audit the top half of the balance sheet, so not the reserves bit, the top half. And we can largely do that in 1 year. So if we have a good audit year, we can largely do that, apart from maybe valuations. That works on the basis that that total is right, and therefore the bottom half is right in total. What we don't know is how it's split across the various reserves, and that's where the testing will need to be performed. In terms of materiality, obviously the reserves are material figures. There will be material figures involved, but we can't tell until we've actually done that work. I mean, there's some assurance from the balances we've then audited in 3.4 and 4.5, but I think we'll be in a better position if we can complete the full audit at 5.6, because then we can start to pinpoint, okay, this is where the gaps are. So valuations, for instance, you can look at your valuations that were done on non-current assets in 21, 22 and 22, 23, or those years where we haven't been able to complete the procedures. If those assets haven't been revalued since, then we haven't done any work to verify them. But the council have still had an expert that have done those valuations. It's just we haven't done the work to verify the balances.
Okay, thanks. Bearing in mind the feeling last year that the council wasn't prepared for the audit, do you feel that there's a better preparation for the 2025-26 audit and that things are on a better track now?
sat next to Danielle, so I need to be careful in terms of how I respond. No, I think there's been positive working between the two teams. So I think there's a few things that came out of last year as to what we could do differently. I think one was, okay, if there's anything slightly different, slightly contentious, slightly technical, run it by us first. I think I count so far 4 or 5 things have been raised by the finance team. And we've had those early discussions, so they shouldn't come out in the audit because we've already kind of got an agreed way forward. We've provided the working paper requirements, refined the wording to try and make that a little bit more specific, and that was being shared early with the officers and given them a chance to just come back, and if you're not sure about something, then come back and we can talk it through. And we've run a workshop. We've run a workshop, haven't we? Yeah, so we've run a workshop to kind of go through some of those recommendations. And again, another opportunity. A lot of this comes down to communication between the two teams. And from when I step back and see what Ahmed has done with the finance team here, there's more communication this year. So I'm kind of hopeful at this stage. We obviously haven't started the full audit, but I'm hopeful at this stage that we're in a better place.
Okay, thanks. Just one final question, if I might, and this is really to the council representatives. What action are we taking to ensure that we can meet the target timetable to gain audit assurance in 26-27? Is there a resource issue? Do you feel adequately resourced to do what needs to be done? And how confident do you feel that we're going to make it?
I'll start if you like. Yeah, thank you for that question, Mr. Jones. So we did have a resource deficit last time. We had a manager role vacant for the whole year, which would have normally led on this process. So that did add to the challenge, but that role was filled just after Christmas, so in January, and that has made a huge difference in being able to sort of lead on that programme. We, following the sort of the outcome of the audit, we reviewed our timetable. We've done training because we had other new members to the team. So we've done internal training amongst the team. We've also, as David said, sort of got the workshop. Siobhan, our head of internal audit, is also coming along to a session, team away day next week to do a sort of audit ready. We've had engagement with the asset team in particular because they feel heavily into the statement, and that's gone particularly well this year as well. We've done more peer review of work and quality of the working papers and challenging each other on those. So I think we definitely feel in a better place and more prepared. And as David said, sort of between us, we've also had sort of more communication.
Great, thanks.
Thank you. Are there any other comments, Councillor Lynch?
Thank you. If I could take members to page 256, factors impacting the execution of 2024-25. It's like a comedy when you look at it. We are atrocious by this. The quality and competence of the draft financial statements requires improvement. Delivery of working papers requires improvement. Quality of working papers requires improvement. Timeliness and quality ineffective. You know, volume and values. What are we doing to make sure this does not happen again? Because that is, as you look at it, you have to look and think, well, we had 265 requests for further information, and those are under things like group accounts, cash, debtors, creditors, investment property, property and plant, equipment, payroll. Is there any bit of the council that we actually could answer quickly? It really is bad reading.
Thank you, Councillor Lynch. So Appendix B is where we've set out the actions that we've taken against that assessment that was done by EY for the 24-25 audit. And that's the action we've put in place. We reflected on those assessments and we've taken that action that we've shown in Appendix B to address those.
If we can then move on to the next part about the fees. EY very clearly state we're about to pay an awful lot more money, but it has in no way, we're council, we've got to understand and budget. Where does it even give us the slightst clue that the current 236,000 and then scale fee variation to be confirmed? Is it going to be £1? Is it going to be £100,000? We need to have some level of understanding from EY what they expect it to be. Even if it's within 20 or 30, this is on page 260. we should have some indication. At the moment, it's just, well, actually, we're going to charge you more and we'll make up a figure when we feel like it. How can that be a proper way of doing business? It's atrocious.
Do we have any indication on that scale fee?
So the scale fee obviously is set by PSAA. The variation, a lot of it comes down to how smoothly the audit goes. So if we find errors, we find issues, it takes more time. PSAA have requested that we don't report potential scale fees until they have determined it. From a budgeting point of view, so for 4-5, we've emailed Lorraine with the proposed fee that's gone into PSAA. We're still waiting for them to determine. So from a budgeting point of view, Lorraine's obviously got a figure and she understands that figure, and I suppose that can be used for the following year from a budgeting point of view. But we need to wait until PSAA determine the fee, because it's them that finally agrees the fee, not us or the council, bizarrely. So we need that before we can then say, well, this is the final scale fee variation.
When is that confirmation likely? Do we have a rough date?
So we submitted back in March. I've seen a number of queries come back on some of the scale fee variations. I haven't seen anything for East Suffolk, so I think that means that there aren't any further queries on it. So I would expect it to be fairly soon. Clearly, all the external audit firms are in the same position. We're pushing for determination because this is a cash flow point for us as well. We've done all the work, but we haven't been paid for any of that work. So we're pushing for it. But PSAA have got a fairly robust process. They will benchmark all of those scale fee variations against all of the councils. They will challenge the auditor. They will ask the officers for their comments, and they will do a sample of file reviews. So I've sat for a few file reviews where they will go through our file and actually say, okay, where is that additional work? So that they can then see what we've done in order to kind of support the fee variation that we've put in.
So presumably at our next meeting, we will have that information, our next meeting being in September, typically.
The 24th, 25, I would sincerely hope that will be absolutely determined by that point. What I can do without actually putting it in the report is maybe have a threshold or a range, because we'll be largely through the 25, 26 audit by then. So we'll have a view in terms of the level of findings or not at that point, which will then help inform any kind of future scale fee variation.
And presumably we'll receive a breakdown of how that scale fee has been calculated in relation to this particular audit.
Yeah, I mean, the letter we sent to Lorraine kind of sets it, itemises, and there's a standard pro forma that PSAA require us to submit, and that is down to the specific entry level for each of the items.
Okay. Any further comments? No. Is everyone happy with the recommendation? I can read it again. The audit and governance reviews and comments upon the EY 25-26 provisional audit planning report. Appendix A notes the actions undertaken and planned improvements by the finance team in response to the feedback provided by EY following completion of the 24-25 audit as detailed in Appendix B. Councillor Lynch.
I think we should be noting that we aren't given all the information. We're auditing something, but we don't know how much the costs are. We're being asked to sign something off, which is, it just feels like you've got an audit committee here, which we spend a lot of time looking at this, and then meanwhile there's a whole pile of information that you're not entitled to hear about until later. Even we should have been given guidance of what the fees are going to be, what we're doing. What's the point of being the audit governance committee and then being told, well, yeah, somebody else is deciding that behind the scenes and you'll find out later?
Yeah,
we've just been walked over. It doesn't feel right, and I don't think we should be. I think we should be noting that we do not have all the information as a committee.
So do we want to add a further note to this recommendation? Notes in lieu of receiving full information, noting, the hard work being done by our own finance team, given this whole backlog that they're having to contend with as well with limited resource. I do feel that would be perhaps a more just calibration of the recommendation if everyone's happy on that. I do feel like we need to note the good work and also note the limitations here of what we're being asked to accept. Happy?
Yep.
Proposer? Councillor Lynch, seconder. Councillor Starling, all those in favour? Thank you very much. Item 7, the 24-25 Auditor's Annual Report. Does the Cabinet member wish to speak or the responsible officer?
I'll read the purpose and recommendations for you. Comptroller and Auditor's General Code of Audit Practice requires Ernst & Young to report to this committee on the work they've carried out in respect of East Suffolk Council to discharge their statutory audit responsibilities together with any governance issues identified. The Auditor's Annual Report, which includes a value for money commentary, highlights any significant weaknesses identified along with recommendations of improvement. Recommendation that the Audit and Governance Committee notes the 2024-25 Auditor's Annual Report, which includes the value for money commentary, Appendix A. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Lorraine, do you wish to add to that?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just to add, this is just formalising the committee approving this report from seeing the audit opinion that was received back in the February meeting, so it's just a formality.
Lovely. Are there any comments on this item from the committee? Mr. Bert Jones?
Thanks. Yeah, can I start on page 287, where EY have identified a new risk relating to decent home standards? I wonder if you, I don't know anything about that issue. I wonder if you could give us a little explanation of what that issue is and what materiality might be involved in it.
Okay, this is it's called the Housing Revenue Account, which is a ring-fenced account for the management of the properties, and it's social housing through East Suffolk Council. I don't actually. There's a manager who manages the HRA who knows the details, but in essence, what happened is a piece of legislation came out through government. Don't remember the name of the statute, but it was we self-referred ourselves about the decent home standards. It was a self-referral, and now we're working on bringing our properties up to standard. I think we're actually a very long way along that track, but I don't actually get very involved in it on the housing revenue account per se. If anybody would like to add to that, please feel free. But I know that it was about 8 months ago, and I think we're a long way along to addressing that issue.
Thank you. I'm interested in the monetary value. I mean, EY describe it as a significant risk, a new significant risk. So how much are we talking about? Do we know?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Jones. We'd have to go back and get, we can get some figures for you, but I know the housing team have been working with the finance team on the findings from the decent homes, and that's being looked at in terms of sort of the budget implications, and that was considered as part of the HRA budget that was approved and set in February on an estimated of what that work would be, and that's gradually being refined as we know more information about what works need to be carried out, but we can certainly provide you with more details.
Thank you. Sorry, thank you. I should also have asked, is there a timetable we're working towards to get this resolved, and what is it? What is our deadline date?
Again, yeah, we can certainly find that information out for you from the housing team. Thank you.
Thanks. If I move on to page 293 then, there's a reference to group account consolidation issues around ESSL. I wonder if you could give us a brief explanation of what those issues are and what action is being taken to address them.
On that particular item, so for the last audit, it was purely just ran out of sufficient time for that element to be audited. So that was unable to be audited by EY, but this, for this year, for the 25-26, we hope that that will be accommodated in the way that we're improving our working with EY this time round.
So was there no audit of the SSL for 24-25 then?
ESSL had their own audit, so they were externally audited. It was just then considering it for the group accounts from our perspective.
Okay, thanks. Then page 298, 295 in the printed version at least is the RAG assessment, and that indicates that over 50% of critical audit issues are either ineffective or require improvement. So how is that being addressed?
Thank you. So in the previous paper, Appendix B is where we set out to address each of those. So we looked at areas that required improvement or ineffective, and then we did set out the actions that have been taken, a combination of the additional resource of the vacancy that we had in the management role, which is now filled, quality assurance checks and challenge around our internal working papers, closer working with other teams, particularly the asset management team in terms of the asset side of things, the workshop that we're doing with EY, Siobhan coming along as well to give it audit readiness, internal training within the team. We had some new members of the team reviewing the year-end close down timetable as well, and seeing how that could be refined, and just picking up and learning from the 24-25 audit. But yes, Appendix B of the previous paper sets out all the actions.
Okay, thanks. I'll go back and have a look at that. Sorry. One more question then. Pages 313 to 315 of the printed version, it's Appendix A, headed recommendations from current year. The issues are there, the recommendations are there, and there's a space for a management response. Has management responded to any of those yet? And if so, can we have copies of the response?
Again, I think, Mr. Jones, those particular recommendations will be picked up in Appendix B of the previous paper, addressing those with the exception of the breach of home standard.
Okay, I think it would be nice to see the issue, the recommendation and the response on one page, so we don't have to go looking for the answers. That's all I was thinking there. Okay, thanks.
Any other comments? No? Councillor Lynch.
Just the question I have is, we have all these value for money statements, yet before the value for money statement, you look at page 296 and it just reads that, well, we can't do the audit. On the page before it, 295, we sent out a financial statement was published on the 30th of June 2025 as set out in the deadline. However, then you read the next sections of it, and most of what the audit that we actually published was gobbledygook, because it was all errors, and we published something that wasn't correct. I don't understand how we're going to get round. And then if we're publishing that, how can we ever say that our value for money is correct when all the rest is incorrect? There's no assurance in this. I find it stifling.
Is there any response to that or any comments from the committee? No? Lorraine, no?
All I can say is, from the finance team perspective, we noted what was highlighted in the last audit, and we're implementing what we think is our best to try and address those. We were not happy with that either, and we want to improve, and that's not the standard that we want to deliver on. Hence why we're very keen and want to make sure that doesn't happen again in the actions that were set out in the previous paper.
Councillor Gandy?
It's interesting reading, to say the least. So in terms of actual moving forward, we're aware of the issues. We're working as a team to improve them along with the recommendations made by Ernst & Young. I know Ernst & Young, you did mention previously that other councils were in a similar boat at a certain point, and and on a wider perspective, how are we feeling? I mean, how should we be feeling comparatively with other councils? Because this is not, from not a non-accountancy viewpoint, this is not good, and it's quite concerning. But obviously, with your experiences, how should we be, and what should we do, and what do we need to do as a committee to address this? Really,
I think the report that I referred to earlier, we only issued it last week, would be worth sharing with the committee and bringing it back as a committee paper, because that will show. So the table where you've got the effective requires improvement, that's been mapped across every authority. So you can kind of see where you sit in comparison. What I would say is there are a percentage, small percentage, but a small percentage of councils that are green across the board, and they moved to a qualified opinion in 24-25. So they're kind of the gold standard, if you like. At the other extreme, there are still a number of councils where we haven't done any audit whatsoever because we haven't been given a set of accounts and we haven't been given any supporting working papers. So you can start to see that East Suffolk kind of sits in the middle at the moment in terms of what needs to happen. But as I said, I think that report will be helpful to see where things happen. In terms of the whole process, the government's 3-stage approach was reset. So that was just, okay, we'll just get rid of all of the backlog. You've then got the kind of the recovery stage, which we're now trying to work through. The reform, which is the third element, and possibly the most significant element, because that's the bit that will kind of address all of the factors that led to this in the first place, hasn't really happened. So we're still waiting for that regulation to kick into place to kind of support not just us, but the council as well. Big element of that will be the establishment of what they're calling the local audit office, which we're hoping will be in place later this year. Then we will have one leader for all of this. So prior to that, if you looked at some of the independent reviews, I think there was 6 or 7 key stakeholders that were trying to manage this process. Well, that doesn't work because you haven't got one voice leading it. So that, I think it's worth just reflecting on that. Yes, it's not positive. Yes, it's a really difficult position to be in, but actually in terms of some of the tools that will enable all of us to get it back onto sustainable footing, they haven't happened. So we're still trying to work with the same system that led us to this position in the first place.
Could we, for our next meeting, have that paper that you mentioned on the agenda so that we can have a discussion on where we sit within the ecosystem? Could we also have an update on the measures obviously being introduced to strengthen the whole process from your team's end, Lorraine, just so that we can kind of marry up both sides, as it were, in that September discussion? Councillor Gandy?
that's a really interesting point you made about having a national audit of, governance regulations covering everything, because obviously we're seeing the results of things happening or the lack of results of things happening without really understanding a much bigger framework that has got, because obviously we talk about this, COVID doing this and blah, 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 doing this, but actually understanding it in a much more, and seeing that there are actually many more outside factors that are really affecting what you can do as accountants and the financial team as well can do. And that would be, so I think, definitely, sorry, Councillor Gray. That's great. That would be really, I think that would be really needed, and that will give us the time as well to actually really dig into it.
Now, I think that's an important aspect of the assurance I think we need, isn't it? That big picture. Councillor Lynch, and then I think Councillor Langdon Morris wished to come in.
If people can look at page 301 or 304, where it goes on about the council's outlined cumulative gap of £28.3 million, i.e. we have a budget gap of 28.3 million. This year, we are looking to we're targeting savings of 3 million, which if we manage to achieve that, and then in our own accounts, we're worse off and we're looking to save 6 million in 27-28. Is that actually feasible without us making some radical changes to the council? Because we don't have 30 million in reserves just to survive until 2028-29.
Thank you. So councillor, as David mentioned earlier, the figures quoted in the reports are a previous time. The latest figures, which quotes a £25 million gap, is the latest figures, which no longer include the savings targets in here. Once funding reform, and we knew where we were with in terms of settlement, we've revised our numbers, and they no longer include a savings target of that needed to be identified. So what are the budgets that we show at the moment, the gaps are based on known, or what we can best calculate is our known costs, known income, with no unidentified savings to be included. So we're as confident as we can be based on what we know. That is the 25 million is our gap, as we know. We estimate it by 29-30.
But on a council of this size with our turnover, that's huge. And that we should be starting to talk now about where we're going to make the cuts, because otherwise we're going to have no money left, and then we're going to be in real trouble, rather than pushing it down the road and saying, well, 25 million over the next 3 years, don't worry about that, we'll come up with something. We should have a plan now.
Councillor Gandy, and then I'll return to that.
The trouble is, we obviously have the uncertainty of unitary, so we cannot budget for 3 years for East Suffolk Council when in 3 years' time we won't have an East Suffolk Council. So I totally feel your pain. The uncertainty is.
It's from an administration and from a kind of a corporate view together, is there an intention to kind of narrow that gap, as Councillor Lynch says, over the next 3 years in terms of spending and saving? Or is there a kind of a sense that if we undergo LGR, that this will be the unitary's problem and cease to be ours? I'm not being pedantic. I'm just trying to understand whether there's a plan to kind of narrow that gap.
Thank you, Chair. So for 27-28, we are already looking at what we can do, and that involves probably some one-off. So not looking at addressing the baseline, but then, as others have said, we then have got the local government reorganisation to now build into the equation, and as a finance work stream now across Suffolk as part of the LGR programme, these are now questions that we are now starting to raise as to the challenges that we all have across the Suffolk system, also some more than others. How do we address that? And that's a question that we need to look at as a Suffolk system, because we have a responsibility to ensure East Suffolk up until LGR is financially sustainable. But then we also have the obligation to ensure that when we go into LGR, that the newer unitaries are also financially sustainable. So there is a challenge between addressing pressures pre-LGR to ensure our councils are sustainable, but then also leading into LGR, those unitaries are also set up in a financially sustainable way. So yes, they're conversations that we are having, in that.
Is there any way that we can have an item on our December meeting agenda? We have a meeting in December, don't we, typically? Where we have a little bit more kind of, presumably, what one would hope, regardless of what certain things are happening, that we'd have a bit of a better sense of the lie of the land in terms of how we're heading into LGR, if we're heading into LGR, whether we're kind of, narrowing that gap as best we can, what the landscape is in terms of financial viability in the long term for us, if we end up continuing, or not if we then transition to LGR. So I think it'd be quite good come end of this year in December that we have perhaps an update on that, with as much clarity as is within your gift, notwithstanding the fact that there isn't much clarity out there at the moment. But I think that would be quite a nice assurance for this committee that we're not kind of presiding over a worsening financial landscape as we go into transition or not. If that's doable, can we add that in the minutes as
We'll crack out the crystal balls.
Crack out the crystal balls, lovely. It's not very festive. Any other comments? Councillor Byatt.
Thank you, Chair. I think also we've got tucked away here and the risk we know in terms of the non-compliance to the Decent Home Standard. Are we absolutely certain that we have enough resilience to deal with what Councillor Lynch was talking about, about 3 million, 6 million, whatever? are we certain that we are not going to need to call on any reserves to deal with bringing our homes up to that standard? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So I could suggest maybe as part of that paper, as well as looking at the general fund, we could also do HRA, Housing Revenue Account as well, which would that be? Because it's, yeah.
Honestly, that the Audit and Governance Committee notes the 24-25 Auditor's Annual Report, which includes the value for money commentary at Appendix A. Do I have a proposer? Councillor Gandhi, seconder. Councillor Lynch. All those in favour? Councillor Gandhi can't propose.
She left the room.
Oh, you left the room. Oh, can she second?
No.
Councillor Lynch proposes. Councillor Leach seconds. All those in favour? Didn't see that. You must have been very quick. Item 8, debt management and write-off policy. Vince, do you wish to speak, or Lorraine?
I'll just read it. So the report provides the committee with the council's updated debt management and write-off policy, ensuring resources are recovered in line with best practice and using a fair and ethical process. Local authorities are required to ensure the management of public debt is efficient and effective, ensuring it is conducted responsibly and in accordance with government guidance. The recommendation is that the Audit and Governance Committee review and approve the updated debt management policy, Appendix A and B of this report. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much. Are there any comments? Councillor Lynch.
It might be just me not being able to read enough pages at the same time, but I couldn't see an awful lot of changes. Was there any substantial changes that I should have noticed? When you're trying to have 2 pages open at the same time on different screens, it's not easy.
Right.
Thank you. So Councillor Lynch, the main area we focused on was around sort of the vulnerability of residents and improving policies, the policy around that aspect of it, and sort of greater focus around recognising sort of hardship amongst residents and refining the policy on that side. We also consulted with Anglia Revenue Partnerships as well on that aspect as well. So that's probably the biggest area that we've revised and updated the policy on.
Thank you. In future, when we get these sort of changes, is it possible to highlight so we can see where the changes are? Because it is quite difficult. They're substantial bits of paper. Thank you.
Yes, I think that's a sensible and hopefully easier thing for everyone all round, being able to kind of track the evolution of change. Any other comments? Councillor Starling.
In regards to the write-off of debt, I know there are companies that are in existence that actually purchase debt. Have we ever thought about actually selling it off to get some money back?
No, we haven't explored that option. No, we haven't, but it's something we could look into.
I have followed that up with Anglian Revenue Partnership on debt recovery. They have a team and that does that for them right to the point where they're unable to recover and then they write off. And the answer was to me, they do not sell debt. I don't think that's allowed in government policy. So I did follow up on that point in the past.
I think as a council, I would be very, very, very reluctant to ever promote anything where you're actually selling people's debt that they owe for council tax or rent because their cost of living crisis, etc., etc. I just think if we ever, I know it's not allowed, and there is support, obviously, and everything, but I think just morally and ethically, just absolutely not at any level. And I personally would leave the council if that's something we actually started considering properly.
Oh, wow, that escalated. Christ. No, point taken. Very well made. Any other comments? Councillor Byatt.
Thank you. Just to save me ploughing through it, do we have a ballpark figure for the total of write-offs for the past financial year? Thank you.
I think that's something.
It's probably near some of it. You know me, I get muddled.
Yeah, Councillor Bartley will have to look at that one and get come back to you. Yeah.
Councillor Gann.
Any moralising. In terms of actual costs of writing off, I understand from previous audit and governance meetings where we have actually looked at it in more detail that actually the cost of trying to get the debt, get debt paid, actually often costs more than what we actually get when we do that. So actually, it's sometimes more economic to write it off, especially in relation to the vulnerabilities, etc., cost of living, etc. So I understand. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct, Councillor Candy. We will take a view if it is a small amount, and as you say, the cost to recover it outweighs the process. So yeah, we will take a view on that with some debts.
Any further comments? In that case, the recommendation was that the Audit and Governance Committee review and approve the updated debt management policy, Appendix A and B of this report. Do I have a proposer? Councillor Gandy, she stayed in the room this time. Seconder, Councillor Starling, all those in favour? Thank you very much. Item 9, Internal Audit Annual Report 25/26. The Head of Internal Audit is making her way to the chair. Cabinet Member responsible, do you wish to say anything on this agenda, or shall we go to Siobhan? Well, we can just skip to Siobhan if you want. I'll read the recommendation out at the end, because otherwise I'll get hit over the head with a frying pan. Siobhan, do you wish to add anything on this item from the outset?
Yes, Chair. Thank you. Good evening, committee formally. So I want to take you through the salient points of my report this evening, namely that this report provides my annual audit opinion as the head of internal audit for the year 25/26, and I'm very pleased to state that I can give a reasonable audit opinion of the work covered. I'll remind the committee that I give a reasonable because obviously I don't look at absolutely everything, which so it's always going to be reasonable if that's as highest I can award. That is dependent on my findings. And also within the report details all the areas of coverage throughout the year, and also within the report is emphasis upon the fact that I and my team must be independent and qualified, and indeed Appendix C explains a self-assessment which I must comply my team with the global internal audit standards and the like. So there's evidence within there about how that is met. And I think just as I finish, I would like to say how grateful I am to the audit manager, Mrs. Fuller online there, and the team. It's a small team, and they've worked very hard throughout the year. And I'd end there. Thank you, Chair.
Well done, team. That's a very good report. And it's nice to always see a sea of reasonable and effective. Any comments from the committee? No? Councillor Lynch?
You don't have to answer this one if you don't want to, but obviously we've seen where some of our accounts and these things have ended up when they go to EY. We know you as a group spend a lot of time bringing these together, and we only have to look at page 4 where we look at some of our thriving economy, and you report limited. You know, we already know at this stage that we've got issues down the line. How much do you feel that your identification is being dealt with early enough, or is it that it's just a case of, well, we know we can't do that very well, we know we can't do this, you know, we've got too many in here where it's reasonable, it's limited. We should be looking at those now, or is it a case of you're identifying it and you feel like it's not being listened to?
Thank you for the question. I can answer that. So part of my role is to make sure that I'm robust with the follow-up and that I'm practical and pragmatic with the recommendations that I make. So when we look at a specific area, of which I've listed out the areas we've covered, we come up, as you know, with a number of recommendations to take forward, and they're then agreed with the relevant senior officers within the teams, with their relevant heads of service and directors are made aware, as well as the chief executive. So I'm quite firm and realistic about the actions which are put to implement to improve the situations. And with on that as well, I also follow up robustly and report to this committee whether or not they've been completed or not. And I will report to this committee whether or not they've been, they go over time and they're exceeding and they're overdue. And this committee has the right and then also to call those particular responsible officers to account here. So that process we have in place as a council works very effectively. So if I'm looking at an exercise, we've undertaken work, my team have, we've got an action plan. This committee needs to be assured that I'm following that up and bringing it to your attention, and that's my duty to do that. And that's what I've been able to do as well, actually. And officers and the corporate leadership team that we have here, I do believe take my role and capacity in my team seriously. And it would be my duty to actually speak to the committee privately if I felt there was any, problem with how I can deliver my professional service. And I can confidently say that is not the case currently.
Maybe I'm picking on the wrong one, but when we look at page 5 of your report, or 363, we've got the Devon Fields project position statement, a corporate risk failure to deliver the Devon Fields Felixstowe development within budget, programme, and the required quality. That sounds pretty damning.
I've just been informed that that's a report in the exempt session, which we can go into if that's more fitting.
If you want a detailed response on that, there is the full audit report. There is the full audit report.
Not been exempt, but it's in this report.
If you want to go into the detail, the fuller report is in the exempt section.
Is that are you?
I mean, if anyone wants to answer it, they can. But I'm just highlighting there is another report that deals with it further down the line.
Yeah. No, of course, no. That well pointed out. Perhaps it's best if we want to go into a little bit more detail to wait. We'll all make a note. Don't worry, Councillor Lynch. We'll come straight to you. Any other comments? No? In that case, I'll read out the recommendation that this committee reviews and endorses the Head of Internal Audit's annual opinion and report, taking note of the annual conclusion on governance, risk management and control, and the internal audit's performance against its objectives. Notes the explanation of compliance against SIPFA's Code of Practice for the governance of internal audit in UK local government. Do I have a proposer? Councillor Starling, seconder. Councillor Gandy, all those in favour? Lovely, thank you. Item 10 is the Annual Information Governance Report 25-26. Siobhan, do you wish to speak before I open to the committee?
Thank you, Chair. To the Salient Points Committee, so this report explains the work that's been undertaken by 4.6 staff, full-time equivalent staff within my team, in relation to data protection law and freedom of information and environmental information regulations. So pivotal areas of work that could right across the whole council. And you can see from the statistics within the volumes of work which has taken place throughout the year. I would like to emphasise that there is great communication and cooperation from officers right across the council. So when a particular data protection request comes through, or a freedom of information request, or environmental information request comes through, this team coordinates and clarifies the correct response which goes out to the customers and the questioner. But they do that in liaison with officers in bespoke areas right across the council. So it's a huge team effort, and within this there's a high degree of training and support provided, and you'll see that the number of breaches that we've had in the year, that is data protection breaches, has increased. And I would suggest, well, not just suggest, based on my experience as the Council Data Protection Officer, that that's because of the amount of reporting which takes place to the information governance team, because people feel now, over a period of time, I would suggest, more comfortable with reporting when something goes awry. So when emails have gone, out incorrectly, let's say, and this happens, we're dealing with thousands of transactions and emails, you can imagine that the reporting process is such that it comes into a team and they deal with that in a very efficient manner and a supportive manner. And I'm very pleased to state that currently we've got no issues at all with the Information Commissioner's Office, which is a fundamental objective that I have here on behalf of the council. Any questions, please, Chair?
Lovely, thank you. Do we have any further detail on what steps are being taken to obviously, well, around kind of email hygiene, as it were, in terms of making sure that we kind of, I appreciate that, you know, it's great that people are more comfortable dealing with this kind of information, but ensuring that we kind of still try and reduce those breach figures. Is there any kind of information available as to what's being taken to improve that process?
Yes, certainly, Chair. So there's a number of things. So what we do is when there's a particular flurry in a certain team, sometimes there's certain teams actually which deal with higher volumes of information, and therefore that's normally where the accidental human error occurs. So what we do is we go and we retrain those particular teams and individuals as well if there's a particular issue, if they've done it more than once, which can happen, but it's quite rare. So we do that where we've also got the mandatory data protection training, e-learning training that we do, but also really key when we've got a specific issue, there will be one-to-one retraining done, and that's mandated by myself as a data protection officer, and I demonstrate that to the Information Commissioner's Office as well, because there's a duty to do that too. So there's a number of factors. We haven't gone as far, this council hasn't gone as far as to ensure that we remove auto email names. Other organisations sometimes do that, where we haven't gone that far. If we were to, that would be an option down the line if it transpired that there was, we saw an even greater increase in the number of email errors going to the wrong people. You can introduce, and in fact, our head of ICT is going to comment about this. Thank you.
Thanks, Siobhan. There is, as Siobhan has set out, the option, when you begin typing an email, it will pick up the name from your sender, and obviously that's quite convenient for people to be able to easily send and operate on a day-to-day basis. So we are having a conversation with Siobhan's team about weighing up whether it's worth doing that or not. So that is an ongoing conversation. I think that what I would just like to put a little bit of context around the numbers in there. And I've just literally, while you were talking, looked up the number of emails that we send as an authority on an annual basis is 2.1 million. And so it then starts to put these figures into context. So, and that's how we have to weigh up whether it's worth us, because that would be quite an inconvenience to the authority to remove that that ability to pick up email addresses easily. Otherwise, you're having to type in the email address for absolutely every email you send. So I think it's to put it into context in terms of the numbers that you see there that were confirmed breaches out of the 2.1 million emails that are sent on an annual basis.
Indeed. Yes, Mr. Hunt.
Can I just ask, has that been established as a problem, or is that just a preventative measure? I wondered if you're concerned about it, if it actually has been checked.
It's an option for preventative measure, Chair.
And you said about when there have been problems, you target some learning in specific teams. I wondered if you've got a system where, when an incident like that happens, if you review the systems and processes and share the learning on a wider scale than just specifically one team.
Yes, thank you. That's a great question. Yeah, absolutely. So we on our intranet, we'll have updates as well on the area of data protection or freedom of information as well, and lessons learned and all that. Thank you.
How do you check how effective that is? Because we know that that's a little bit of a boring subject for a lot of people. I'm just wondering how you monitor the effectiveness of it.
Haven't gone as far as to do that yet because the numbers are relatively small. So I feel confident in what we've covered, but thank you for the point.
Any other comments? Councillor Byatt?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Siobhan, as ever. Working hard with your small but perfectly formed team. obviously always ask the question, would you like more staff? But you know, that's the standard question. 572.2 days. Can you give me an idea of what that cost has been to this authority in terms of officer time? Thank you.
So, thank you. So what I can tell you is the cost of the information governance team, not obviously the other extra time that officers throughout the council have spent. So we're 332,000 that we believe that team costs. I think I've got the right team here. I've got a number of teams I'm reporting upon this evening, so bear with me. What I'll do is I'll go and clarify that and find that out precisely to make sure that. But in essence, in order to deliver the information governance and the legal aspects of that for this council, that's the
And also within that, when you quantify it, do you charge councillors time for responding to FOI requests, or is it just paid staff? Thank you.
That's just paid staff actually, and we're unable to. That's the cost of the service to deliver the officers' work time. We don't charge the public for those requests. We're not supposed to do that.
Thank you.
Councillor Lynch.
It's really a question. When you look at page 7 of your report, which is on page 398 for those on the system, there's personal land searches. Do they come under the freedom of information? What are personal land searches? Because I've noticed a massive anomaly between our statement of accounts on page 10 saying there was 5,151 freedom of information requests, and then when I look at this under FOI, it's basically 701. You know, that's the figures don't get even close to matching. So somewhere the two things are getting confused and totally different to what we're stating on our statement of accounts and what we then have as information here on table 4.
Thank you. I can respond to some of that. So as regards the 5,000 figure that we've got on there, the 5,163 requests, about 4,000 of those are actually land searches, personal searches. So that's where people are wanting to know who owns the land and the property, and there's a specific request you can make to a council about that. So that comes through then to a particular team, and it's captured then, it's routed by the information governance team. I think Councillor Gandy would like to speak.
I get a lot of these. Yeah, do we not get the actual resident to do it? Because obviously it costs every time. Yeah, that's right then.
Yes, that's right. We can have a mixture a mixture of requests from a resident or a company or the like to put the information through. So what we found a few years ago is that there were some anomalies with the timing of responding and all of that. So it was combined within my information governance team because we made it an efficient, effective process along with the other offices in the council that actually go and dig out the maps and check on the data. So that's what's captured. So it's about 4,000 within that figure. So it's over 1,000 actual FOI and UI requests. In relation to the figures you were just referring to with finance, I think, I don't know which particular page we turned to, but I imagine that might be finance referring to the number of finance questions that related to FOIs, not the whole council. And I'm talking about all of the figures in my data here.
But if you're talking about all council and you've got 701, and on page 10 of our statement, we've got 5,151, in theory, yours should be the bigger one, not the same. I find some of the figures between what we're looking at is sort of almost identifying all the errors that we're getting. There's such a massive hole. If they're 5 or 10 out, I get it, or even 100. But the difference between 701 and 5,151, they're not even close.
We can probably have a look at that in the statement of accounts. Just looking at that, that is in terms of sort of our performance data, freedom of information requests, and environmental information regulations. which does quote, as Councillor Lynch says, 5,151 requests were completed within 20 working days. But yeah.
All I can say is I'll go away and clarify the other document, which I did not write, but I'll find out the source of that in order to make that clear. Okay. What I can confirm, I'd like the committee to be confident that actually that stats of 5,163 is the year's statistics in relation, and you understand that 4,000 of them were land searches. Okay, so that's we'll go away and check.
Yeah, and I think that's Siobhan, that's the performance data, and it does say the target, so maybe it might be some falling outside that target, but we can,
yeah,
we can.
Thank you. Welcome that clarification as soon as possible. Any further comments? No, then the recommendation is that Audit and Governance Committee reviews and comments on the annual information governance report 25-26. And as a kind of a sub bullet, that we will have that clarificatory information as soon as possible. Proposer rather. Councillor Gandy, you've got your coat on. I think I'm trying. It's like you're trying to rush me on. Seconded, Councillor Lynch. All those in favour? Thank you very much. Item 11, Annual Senior Information Risk Owner Report 25-26. Siobhan, do you wish to speak before I open to the committee?
No, thank you, Chair.
Are there any comments from the committee? No? And that, Councillor Byatt, you do it to throw me off.
Thank you. Curiosity, really. Who sits on the Suffolk County Council Ethics Committee? Thank you.
Thank you for that question, Chair. I'll go away and find out. So it's a combination, I understand, of senior officers and councillors. But I will go away and get the exact names because I think they've had a reshuffle recently. Yeah.
Any further comments? In that case, the recommendation is that the Audit and Governance Committee reviews and comments on the annual Senior Information Risk Owner Report 25-26. Do I have a proposer? Councillor Byatt, seconder. Councillor Gandy. All those in favour? Thank you very much. Item 12, Corporate Fraud Annual Report 25-26. Siobhan, do you wish to speak before I open this up?
I do, thank you, Chair. So salient point, committee, is the table really on page 2, which is 426 of the bundle that you've got. So for the year 25-26, under the leadership of Mrs. Sheila Mills-James, who's present this evening, the fraud manager, and her 4 staff, this service area actually does cost £332,000. So I'll go away and find out the other one. I had this in forefront of my mind, actually. So so for that area, for those professional officers, they have delivered over 4.6 million in national savings for the council, largely in the areas of housing, but right across the council. And I'm very proud of the work the team's undertaken. The team, the council, the previous chief exec and the current chief exec supported, along with this committee, to have an in-house qualified corporate fraud service. And I promised, a decade ago that we'd make sure that the returns, as far as possible, were 3 times the cost of the service. So I'll give your committee consideration about value for money there. What's really important to note is a vast majority of the work has taken place on right to buy properties. So you will recall that the law changed the other year, and therefore people's discount rates that they could get for right to buys was significantly reduced. So we did have a flurry as a council of buying right to buy houses, our council properties. And so the corporate fraud team are heavily involved in the due diligence work, all associated with that. And I'd like also to commend housing officers and the legal services team as well, along with some officers in the finance team. So there's a cohort of work that goes on behind the scenes to make sure that, if we're going to sell a property from our housing stock, that it's appropriate. And I'll take any questions, Chair, your committee may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much for the report. It's quite startling when you look at the national context, and they estimate that pretty much the defence budget is lost to fraud and, and error against public funds. Councillor Lynch.
Thank you. It's a little bit more about clarification. When we look at the, trying to find the right page now, page 9 of your report, we've identified obviously the right to buy during 25-26 over doubled, but we're also seeing very large increases in tenancy fraud to the stage that it's now over £1 million a year. What's driving that, and how do we stop, or how do we identify ways of reducing this? Because in 23-24 it was 500,000, and in 2 years it's gone from 500,000 to 1.1 million, as that's quite substantial. If it carries on at its current rate, that's going to be another chunk of debt we've got.
Yes, thank you. So, albeit that we're in open session, therefore not to go into too many methods about our activities and anti-fraud activities. With that, we have our whistleblowing hotline, we have our fraud hotline, we have a great deal of work which takes place within the housing teams as well, and coordinated responses that feed into the corporate fraud team in relation to suspicions and oddities. And so it's about the number of referrals we receive as a corporate fraud team on the activity that's taking place. So that's a combination of proactive and reactive work that we're doing. So the more we inform and support people that are in our housing stock, and also our housing officers rather, therefore it has a knock-on effect of anomalies being raised, so we can then do our investigations in those fields. Does that support a response, Councillor?
Councillor,
when you look at those figures, surely we should be having another member of staff in your team, because if those are the amounts of figures that you're saving, the cost of a member of staff compared to 4 million is it. We need a bigger team.
No. There you go. Can't argue with that, can we? Councillor Gandhi.
Well, maybe. Sorry. Statistically, the number of actual people committing fraud is absolutely tiny, and the amounts have gone up because rents have gone up and costs have gone up. Presumably, it's not a massive increase. It's statistically, it's still a pretty tiny amount of people actually committing fraud, is it not? That if it's 33 irregularities out of how many applicants? I mean, how many applicants do we have? Thousands? When I last looked, so I mean, it seems like a big figure because obviously you're buying a property and properties cost so much, but actually it's 33 people, rent, buying and tenancy. And so actually it's not. And the tenancy fraud, is that what the actual money that's been defrauded, or is that a percentage that so people not paying rent and therefore, yeah.
Be handy filling that gap from earlier, wouldn't it, that we've got on our budget? So yeah, I think, I don't know what other committee members feel. I would quite like an exempt briefing next meeting on a little bit more detail about the nature of this fraud. You know, highlighting perhaps test cases or examples within the confines of an exempt session and data protection and everything. But I think that this committee would benefit from having a deeper understanding, particularly about how we identify some of this activity and deal with it, and also so we can explore how, as a committee, we may be able to make potential recommendations as to how we better support this critical function of the council. Councillor Lynch?
I would like to add to it that I think the council should have a serious look or evaluation as to the benefits of taking on additional staff into this team, because this is huge amounts of money. We've got some big black holes coming down the line. If we can stop that at the cost of even one member of staff producing £1 million, that's massive. And I think we have to wonder, is the team big enough? Or is it a case of the team says, well, actually, they're not fully working? I can't imagine that.
Could we then factor in some resourcing analysis? I would quite like, if we have this item an exempt session at our next meeting, to obviously have you there, Siobhan, in your capacity as internal audit, but also have someone from the housing team to speak from kind of the policy provision end of all of this as well, if that's okay. Councillor Gandy, did your hand go up? No, you sure? Okay. Councillor Byatt.
Thank you, Chair. Really just to endorse what you just said and what Jeff said as well. In 567 cases, it will be interesting to see a breakdown of what those case types were and also which ones were prosecuted, and did we actually regain anything from those prosecutions in terms of what we've lost. But certainly also built in with perhaps in your next meeting, whether I'm there or not, would be to consider whether we bid for additional staff for Siobhan, because this, I mean, seeing it over the years and how fraud has been really reduced, but it's still there. I think that's the worrying thing, that people are still defrauding this authority in some way and getting around it. But if we can put any resourcing in to bring that figure down, but also whether we consider that we should publicise, you know, let the public know, put it out into the public domain that XYZ has defrauded this. I know we have data protection and we have to worry about the people and why they might have defrauded, but it's still our council losing millions of pounds, you know, and I think it would have a way we can do that, but certainly would endorse what you suggest. Thank you.
No, I think that's an important aspect of deterrence. Councillor Specker.
Thank you. In a kind of follow on to that, I know it would be impossible to say for certain, but is there any estimate of the amount of fraud that might be occurring, including the undetected fraud? We have national figures in your report, but do we have any sense whatsoever what East Suffolk's share of that might be, detected and undetected?
I'd have to be really honest and say no. It's not a figure I would be able to. All I can say is that, of course, we've got fraud. Any organisation's got fraud. We're very naive to say we don't. So I'd say, you know, I can't estimate what it is. What I can do is we can identify and react. We can do our proactive work and then react when we suspect things and follow it through. That's the confidence I'd like the committee to know, and the training. You know, we're an extremely qualified team. We're linked with the National Crime Agency and everything, so intelligence is shared. Also linked back with that to give you confidence. Following tonight's committee meeting, I've got a publicity about to go out from Councillor Vince Langdon Morris about the fraud results, which hopefully, and if we were to do a particular prosecution as well, then we would publicise that as well. I've just, with my hat on, as you know, I'm the head of audit at Ipswich Borough Council as well, and we've just undertaken a successful prosecution, and we're going to publicity about that. So, you know, we will follow that through if that is the particular correct consequence for the issue we're looking at. So we must be proportionate, of course, in what we pursue. Also in the realm of fraud and irregularity. Does that? So I'm unable to say what proportion, and I think I would be foolhardy from my perspective to say that. Only that one of the extra things we're doing now is there was a new law that came in last year, or a couple of years ago. It was enacted last year then, where the economic crime and transparency, what we must do is to make sure that we've done a deep dive into fraud risks within each service area. So we're busy working with a small team. Effective team is working through each team. So we're rag rating that. So we're looking at what are the more potential high risk service areas in the council, and going in and working with the officers about, you know, fraud risks and having their perspectives on things as well. And we're documenting that. So probably going forward, you know, we might be looking at other areas that haven't cropped up before, or where staff haven't felt confident, or we haven't had referrals through. So, you know, we're doing our very best.
It wasn't a criticism, and I would have been surprised if you had actually had an answer. I guess in the context of wondering how much more could be generated should more staff be hired or allocated to fraud investigations, it's very difficult to make a judgment about that without some idea. So, for example, if there's a national number, the average council is defrauded by X amount of pounds. How does that compare to what we're recovering? Are we the average council? Obviously, with you in place, we're not the average council. We're better than the average council. But if we're going to have this discussion, I think it would be very difficult for us to have that exempt discussion unless we had some idea of suspicions about what might be out there that we're not catching. And so it was merely meant to jog that idea.
Absolutely, and I think that if we have that, well, we will have that exempt session, if I may be so presumptuous. I think we can. I really want to use that as a lever and a hook for how we bolster and turbocharge this aspect of what the council does. At the end of the day, you know, this is taxpayers' money. This can go towards. We are in challenging financial times as a local authority, as are many up and down the country, if not all. This is absolutely something that we should be prioritising as a council. Councillor Gandy.
Just keeping it really brief, obviously totally get the point about proportionality. We are living in economic difficult times for everybody, including our residents. I think that what we could focus on in that longer session, whilst it's on top of my head, is actually we do have residents that are quite happy to police each other in the nicest possible way. So actually engagement with our residents to perhaps encourage about the reporting system might be better, rather than saying we've taken this person to court, we've done this. How about is there's this avenue if you've got concerns, which I know in my ward people. So it's just about that engagement could be much more constructive, but we will discuss it more at a later stage.
No, absolutely. I think, you know, let's approach it as background, more detail into what we currently do, some of those test cases, but also a kind of a paper of if we had ABC, we could produce DEF within the confines and bounds of the art of the possible in terms of from a corporate fraud perspective, but also that's why I'm keen to have the housing team here from a policy perspective as well. Is there something that we can tighten up at the beginning of the pipeline, as it were? And, you know, it would be great to have some kind of indicative information about resource. I'm not, you know, we're not as probably simple as to suggest that if you put down on paper or if you got me one more officer, we can identify X amount. That's not what we're looking for. But I think if we can have some form of explanation as to if we were to have more staff, we could look into these areas, you know, which may be currently beyond what we're doing, or we may be able to drill deeper down into that aspect. I think that's still helpful to have because that gives us a sense of direction of travel as to where we might be able to go. I hope that's feasible. I think it's a really interesting area that I think this committee can get its teeth into. And if there are no objections, I would like to add that to the recommendation. It's a rather verbose encapsulation, but hopefully it's been clear enough. Are you happy with that, Ali, as the person who has to formulate that into something intelligent?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I've got an so, you know, that's good.
Chair, can I just?
Councillor Bart, yes, quickly.
Just a quick offish thought, but do overview and scrutiny have any interest in fraud? Would it be worth convening a joint audit and governance and overview and scrutiny committee to look at this, and then you'd then be able to put powerful recommendations to full council? Just a thought. Thank you.
Let me just turn to Ali just in case she's looking vexed.
I've got no idea how we do that practically, a joint committee. I think you could have. Yeah. I could just CC that committee into this report.
Why don't we do what we need to do? Yeah. And as a result of that exempt session, we may want to recommend that we pull in other parts of the council. Absolutely. I think we need to drill down into it and then come up with some informed recommendations, I think, to really kind of take this to the next stage. Yeah? Yeah? Okay. Yes. Happy? Is September doable for that as an exempt kind of session? Yes, thank you. If there are no other comments, then the recommendation is that the Audit and Governance Committee comment upon and note the Corporate Fraud Annual Report 25-26, and that we have that exempt item in September with the internal audit team, but also housing team represented there as well. Fun for the whole family. Proposer, Councillor Specker, seconder, Councillor Back, all those in favour. You keep putting your hands down and putting them down again. Item 13, corporate risk management update. Sandra, do you wish to speak before I open it to the committee?
Sorry, I'm not sure if Councillor Brandon Rogers was going to introduce the item or.
Did you have anything to add that otherwise wouldn't be kind of said?
I've got one thing to.
Go on, then, go for it.
So just to say that this time, in response to some of the comments from when we brought this in December, we did circulate the risk register to all members of the committee in advance, so that you could look at the full risk register in advance and raise any queries about any particular risk.
Absolutely.
We haven't heard anything back from that, but it would be good to get feedback as to whether that's useful.
Yes. So in lieu of that, not in lieu of that, given that, members, in the interest of time, can raise something now in committee or can work through that document in slower time and go back to Sandra with further comments. Councillor Lynch.
Only because I sit on more than one committee. I'm a little bit confused by page 448, 3.5.10. The reducing the risk for Freeport East, whereas on another committee, we have had some real misgivings about Freeport East and the way it's been heading. And yet we're saying actually we think it's less of a risk, whereas another committee has gone down the route of going, actually we've had people in from Freeport East to ask them questions.
I think this particular risk is about our ability to deliver the accountable body role. So it's not about Freeport East as an entity so much as our responsibilities to deliver that for our accountable body part of that. That's what the risk was referring to. So I take they will be different, I think, in terms of their approach.
Councillor Bart.
Just a very brief thank you very much for the diagram on page 446. It is a brilliant idiot's guide. It's fantastic to have it in one snapshot. Seriously, Sandra, thank you.
There you go, Sandra. A hell of an endorsement there.
Well,
from Councillor Bart.
Yes,
the man who needs the guide. Any other comments from the committee? No, in that case, the recommendation was that the Audit and Governance Committee note and make comment on the corporate risks outlined on the Council's current corporate risk and opportunity register, which is governed and monitored by the corporate leadership team. And, obviously, if you have any further questions on that, you can reply directly to Sandra and the team, who very kindly shared that in advance. Do I have a proposer? Councillor Leach, seconder. Councillor Back, all those in favour? Thank you, everyone. No, you're not? I'm not in favour, no. Excellent. So is that an abstention or against? Against. Councillor Specker against. Item 14. Recently issued internal audit reports. Siobhan, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Chair. So there's one report in the open agenda this evening. Committee, Key Financial Systems, and I've given that an effective audit assurance opinion. Any comments? Thank you.
Any comments from committee members? 3, 2, 1. No? In that case, The recommendation is that the Audit and Governance Committee considers and comments upon the presented internal audit reports. Do I have a proposer? Councillor Gandy. Seconder, Councillor Barrett. All those in favour? Thank you very much. Item 15, internal audit status of action. Siobhan, do you wish to speak?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just to raise the salient points that I'm very pleased to say that we've got no overdue recommendations, which is very important for good governance here at the council. My duty to tell you about them. The paper gives you a snapshot, an update from our last committee, because this is a standing item at your committee meetings, and you can see the sort of flow of the amount of recommendations we've issued and the status of them. But I'm very pleased to say there's nothing overdue. Thank you, Chair.
Excellent, and a solid figure closed there. Any comments? In that case, the recommendation is that the Audit and Governance, the recommendation is longer than the discussion we've had. That the Audit and Governance Committee considers whether any further action or explanation is necessary from service areas to ensure that agreed actions to improve East Suffolk Council's control environment are made. Where no further action or explanation is deemed necessary, that the committee notes the report. Do I have a proposer? Councillor Lynch, seconder. Councillor Gandy, all those in favour? Thank you very much. Item 16 is the Forward Work Programme. Obviously, we have discussed a couple of things thus far that we will include, the September one and the December kind of end of the year lie of the land on all things audit. External audit kind of.
Christmas talks.
Yeah. No, that was the LGR one, wasn't it? I misremembered. Those are noted. Are there any other comments on the work programme? Committee members wish to shoehorn anything in with glee? No? Well then, the work programme is noted. There isn't a recommendation for that, is there? I ask you that every time. Memory like a goldfish. Item 17, we're now moving into exempt session. I'll read this bit out and then we'll have a 3-minute comfort break before we carry on. It is recommended that under section 100A brackets 4 of the Local Government Act 1972 as amended that the public be excluded from the meeting for the following items of business on the grounds that they involve the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraphs 1, 2, 3 of part 1 of schedule 12A of the Act. Do I have a proposer to take us into exempt? Councillor Lynch. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Barrett. All those in favour? Thank you very much. Please wait whilst Ali terminates the feed.
Lovely. Thanks, everybody.
Let's have a break of 3-4 minutes.